Special edition of the Explorers Den. We are blessed to have our boy, the mid-major madness expert, Nick Sorensen, with us. Nick, welcome to the Explorers Den. Tell the Explorer fans who aren't as familiar with you as we are a little bit about yourself and how at such a young age you've become probably the leading expert in mid majors in the country.
Yeah. So I'm Nick. I was actually a GA under Dunph this past year at LaSalle. So 1 year under my belt at 20th and Olney. But yeah, I have a pretty interesting story. My parents aren't in college athletics. My mom is a therapist. My dad's a middle school math teacher. But my grandfather was in college administration. He was actually at Duquesne, another A10 team. He was in charge of admissions and student life over there for about 40 years. He was a huge Duquesne basketball fan. Made me a huge Duquesne basketball fan. I followed Duquesne basketball growing up religiously, really up until last year before I got to LaSalle. And I was at the conference tournament game and I was crying in the stands. But I've always loved basketball. I've always loved sports. I've always loved mid-major basketball. And in middle school, I started these Instagram pages. I started one for Duquesne. I started one for UMBC. I had one for all of college basketball, and I would just talk about college basketball in middle school and throughout high school. And I was lucky enough to run an account when UMBC ended up beating Virginia, and UMBC didn't have
Remember
a
that?
page. They didn't have a page themselves when that happened. So everyone was tagging me. Everyone thought that I was working in the athletic department. They were tagging me. I had Steph Curry, ESPN, USA Today, the Ravens, Fortnite, all these huge accounts tagging me, and I ended up gaining like 20,000 followers overnight. And UMBC not happy with that. Obviously, They were losing a lot of money out of it, not having an Instagram page. So they offered me an internship in the athletic department, and I did that my final 2 years of high school. That last year of high school, I started writing for Mid-Major Madness. We had someone running the Twitter page, and he ended up leaving my sophomore year of college. Ended up going to work for Kevin Durant on his media agency, and that's all void, and I filled it. So I've been on that account for 4 years now, and I got it at probably about 30,000 followers, and we're inching towards 80,000 followers as the tournament starts up here on Thursday. And I was lucky enough last year, or I guess now it's 2 years because the season just ended ago, 2 seasons ago, to hop on staff at Queen's University. I needed an internship to graduate the University of South Carolina. I wanted to get into coaching. Their coach let me on. I was a coaching intern there for 1 year, and then I saw Mike Doyle post something on Twitter. So I thought I'd reach out. It'd be pretty damn cool to work with Fran Dunphy for a year or two. So I ended up getting that gig, and I've been at LaSalle ever since. You can see I'm in the office right now. Jason Umacella's name and Milos Kovacevic right above me. But yeah, I'm blessed. I love the A10. I loved working for Dunph for a year, and it's going to be interesting couple months, couple weeks here at 20th and Only as we see the hope to get a nice new team heading into a new year in the A10.
Well, Nick, there's so much debate about mid majors. Can you explain to the audience what exactly is the definition of a mid major?
Yeah, so the way I look at it is the 26 leagues that aren't high major now. There used to be 32 leagues with the Pac-12. So ACC, that's a high major league. The Big 12, that's a high major league. Big 10, that's a high major league. SEC, that's a high major league. And the Big East, that's a high major league. That leaves 26 other leagues. Gonzaga, I consider not a mid-major. They've made it to 16 straight Sweet 16s, I believe it is. And they have a really tough route. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we look through the bracket. They ended up getting an 8 seed for whatever reason. They ended up winning the WCC title, getting the 8 seed. They played Georgia, and then they would have to play Houston in the round of 32. Two teams that have been consistently making it to the Sweet 16. So I don't consider Gonzaga mid-major. Now there's a couple teams right there on the teetering line, like a Dayton. Dayton sells out every single game. They have a super high athletics budget. You have a school like Memphis who sells out an NBA arena every game. They just don't win like they really should. But I think it's every other team in all those other leagues outside of Gonzaga.
So Nick, before we start to break down the bracket, why don't you talk a little bit about? I just put your top 25 up there, and I'll put it up again here in a second. But maybe talk about the teams you thought might get in from your top 25 that didn't.
There was really only one. The bubble was super weak. That I was kind of shocked didn't make it in, and that was Boise State. Tyson Dagenhart is one of the best takeover players in the country, and they have a couple. Alvaro Cardenas comes in from San Jose State. He was a great assistant point guard, and they have a really nice front court over there. But they were right there. They were one of the first four teams out. They were actually the only first four team out from the mid-major ranks. All the other ones were high major. I would have liked to see UC Irvine get a better chance. Two of their losses were to a UC San Diego team that we saw in Daytona Beach, who ended up having a really good season. They won 30 games. They ended up making it to the NCAA tournament their first year of eligibility. That's a really good team with a really good front court with Ben Loiston, great German. They churn out big men in that UC Irvine program. Devin Tillis can shoot the lights out of the ball. Miles Shea came over from Chattanooga. He can shoot the lights out of the ball. I would have liked to see them get a chance, and I would have liked to see another A-10 team get a chance. We saw George Mason give VCU a really, really, really tough fight on Sunday at Capital One Arena, and they've been up there towards the top all year. All their losses in non-conference were really close. The only really bad loss was, I believe, Central Michigan, and that was at the buzzer, and like 5 seconds or 5 points they gave up in like the final 5 seconds. I wish they would have had a better. I wish they would have had a better opportunity to make that NCAA tournament. And we're going to see. I think VCU is a Sweet 16 team. I think this is the best A-10 team we've had since Dayton. They're going to be kicking themselves for leaving George Mason out, leaving another A-10 team out. It's just all we're just trying to cater to the high major programs now. SEC was amazing this year. They had 14 teams in the NCAA tournament.
Unreal.
My South Carolina Gamecocks could have went to the NIT. That just shows how stacked that league is, that the worst team in the league got an automatic bid to the NIT because they give the automatic bid to the best team left in these high major leagues now. Stacked league. But I wish those three would have got a chance. And we're going to see UC Irvine and the NIT, George Mason and the NIT, and Boise State in the new college basketball crown playing an A-10 team in George Washington, who really surprised me towards the end of the season. George Washington's better than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, certainly, the A-10, it's a shame that league, as competitive as it was all year, was just allowed one team. I mean, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed, coming and watching the games this year just because of the competitiveness of the league.
Yeah, there was not a single easy game any that. I mean, we lost to Fordham, who finished below us in the league. Fordham could have went into Dayton and given them a fighting chance. There was not an easy game for anyone in this league this year, but VCU just seemed leaps and bounds above everyone else, and I just feel like they're going to have a day against BYU. It could be the second year in a row that BYU loses an A-10 team in the NCAA tournament and then makes maybe a little run to the Sweet 16, Elite 8. Who knows? Maybe they'll get back to 2011 and make the Final Four.
Well, let's get into the playing games. First up, Alabama State, St. Francis. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to St. Francis. It's their first time in the NCAA tournament since 1991. Rob Krimmel, an alumni of the university. He's been there for a very, very long time as a player, as an assistant coach, as a head coach. And he's finally got over the hump. He's had a couple of really good teams. They finished third in the league, had their freshman of the year in the league. But Alabama State's been playing awesome basketball. If I had to choose a team this game, it would be Alabama State. They actually turned the ball over the third fewest in the entire field. They won all but one game from February on, and they had a super tough route to make it to the title or even to win the title game in the SWAC. They had to beat Grambling, who's the defending champions, and then they had to beat they beat someone. I don't remember who they beat in the first round, but they beat Grambling in the second round, who was the defending champions. They beat a good team in the first round too in the 4-5 game, so it's supposed to be a pretty even game. And then they beat Jackson State, who finished second. And it was a huge game for Mo Williams, their head coach, former guard on the Cavaliers. He was the head coach at Alabama State before he went over to Jackson State. We see that a lot in that league. But I think Alabama State's the team to win this game. Obviously, you got to go on and you got to play the top team in the country in Auburn. And you got to go up against Chani Broom, and it's going to be an absolute task. But it's going to be nice to see a SWAC team get a national spotlight in a school like St. Francis, where they're really buying in on this middle of Nowheresville. That's what they're saying right now, middle of Nowheresville, PA. I know you guys have probably been out to Loretto. That place is in the middle of nowhere. Right by State College. It's like and you pull up the campus, you're like going through rolling hills. It's a beautiful place. But I'm happy that both these schools are getting their spotlight. They're two that have not been in the NCAA tournament in a long time. A league like the SWAC does not ever get the spotlight like it does in these first 4 games. So it's going to be a really fun opener to the NCAA tournament to see these two teams play.
How about the a team that we have some familiarity with is American versus Mount St. Mary's?
Yeah, the metrics hate American, but we all saw them to start the season, and I think that they're a really good team. I love all the guards they have.
I
They have a
watched
lot
them
of
play against Lafayette twice, and they're tough.
yeah, and I was kind of shocked they tied with Bucknell at the top of the Patriot League. I thought they were a little bit better than that, but obviously records don't change anything. But Matt Rogers was the player of the year in the league once again. Great big man. I really like him. Mount St. Mary's had a great year. It was Donnie Lynn's first year as the head coach at the Mount. He was at UNCG before. And they're a little banged up. Carmelo Pacheco didn't play in the conference tournament. There's 3-point sniper shooter. But I love American. And I said it when we played them. Everyone was kind of looking at me with like 3 heads to pick someone over Colgate. I said, this is the year that's going to happen. Someone's going to do it, and it's American. I just wish they didn't have to play Cooper Flagg and potentially Cooper Flagg if he's healthy and Duke in the next round, because they could be one of the better 16 seeds we've seen in a while. I know the metrics are absolutely horrible, but I really like this American team. I was really impressed when we saw them in the first game of the year.
Well, Rogers against us, we were fortunate in that he didn't have a great game and he got in foul trouble, if you remember.
Yeah, I had a stat. It was like I was telling John Cox, it was when he's held under 14 points or under 10 points, they've won like 1 game in his 2-3 years there. And we were able to keep him pretty quiet and pulled out a dominating win. Those are a couple awesome wins when you look back at it, because Lafayette, that's always nice to be the local team. We absolutely dominated them. Cornell made the Ivy League finals in John Jock's first season. Trex was always good. And then that Daytona tournament ended up being a really good field, including UC San Diego, who is now in the NCAA tournament as a 12 seed.
Well, it's interesting because we're going to transition to San Diego State UNC, and obviously the talk of the tournament right now is UNC shouldn't have got in, but yet everybody's picking them to win maybe a game or 2, simply because they are a talented team. Just lost a lot of games this year.
Yeah, they're super talented. We saw R.J. Davis down there in Chapel Hill, and he's the leading scorer in ACC history, North Carolina history, one of the 2. He can absolutely shoot the lights out of the ball, and they have all these 4 or 5-star recruits on this team. And that will really help against a team like San Diego State, because San Diego State the last couple of years has been a super veteran team. They play bully ball. This San Diego State team is super young, and they come from behind a lot this year. They do an amazing job blocking shots. I believe they're in the top 5 in the field in blocking shots, and that's because Magoon Guath, he's one of the best freshman big men in the country. But I do think UNC is going to win this game. I could see them making a little run just because R.J. Davis is that kind of guy, and they have a ton of talent on the team. They just need to hope something stupid doesn't happen, like a lane violation in the last couple seconds.
Well, let's get started in the East. We got to start with the East, men. So, the winner of the play-in game, as we just talked about, American St. Mary's will get the Dukies, number 1 seed in the East. Nick, 2 seed overall. You're picking American, right?
Yeah, I wish I was picking American. That's like the worst matchup possible. Like I just said, you have Cooper Flagg going up against Matt Rogers. Matt Rogers is hard to guard, but if Cooper Flagg's healthy, he's going to stop him. American runs the 4th slowest pace in the field, have the highest minutes continuity in the country, so they're just churning out the same people over and over again. But we saw this American team play against UNC right before we played UNC, and they got absolutely smoked. They lost by about 40-50. And Duke's obviously a much better team. So it's going to be a tough matchup for these American Eagles, but it'll be nice to see them on the national stage because everyone's going to want to watch this Duke team. This Duke team's been awesome all year. So it's going to get a lot of eyes on American U. Great school in a great area of DC with a really, really talented team and a really, really talented young coach that could be in the A-10 in a couple years. Watch out for Dwayne Simpkins.
We'll keep our eyes and ears open for him. The 5-12 game, we have Oregon against Liberty. Liberty is 25-0 when holding teams to between 63 and 70 points. Nick,
Yeah, they're a really good team. They've been great all year. They've been winning, and the analytics love them too. They have the highest field goal percentage in the league. They can shoot the lights out of the ball. Little Colin Porter in the Conference USA semifinals on Friday, I believe he made 7 3-pointers in the second half. He was just shooting the lights out of the ball against Kennesaw State. They came from behind. They ended up beating them. They ended up beating Jack State in the title game. But they can shoot the hell out of the ball. And they're a really, really good defensive three-point team, too. They're holding teams to the third lowest total in the field from three-point range. And they allow the fewest assists as well.
the 3-13 game, Arizona and Akron.
Ron Hall and Richie Tarr. You see who's this in the background?
He still
He
has his
stood up
keys.
pretty early this morning.
Yeah, we had a coaches versus cancer brunch at the Palestra.
I saw him being interviewed at like 5:30 this morning.
We were talking about Akron.
Yep, school record,
Yeah.
28 wins.
They score. They score, man. They played Miami, Ohio on Saturday in the MAC title game, and they came back from 16 down. High scoring team. They've scored 100 plus 5 times this year. They run the 5th fastest pace in the field. They use their bench really, really well. Nate Johnson is great for that team. I don't think this is as good as the Akron team of last year with Enrique Freeman, who's playing in the NBA right now. But I think they're still a really good team. I think Arizona's a tough matchup because they put up points as well. So I wouldn't be picking an upset here, but a lot of people do like the Zips to shock some people.
Awesome, man. Game I'm really looking forward to. I saw some experts last night say, they were going to pick BYU several rounds until they saw the matchup with a VCU team that we just had the pleasure of watching for 3 days in DC.
Yeah, I love this VCU team. Max Scholga is one of the better guards in the country, and that was shown that he was almost going to go to Villanova. I mean, they don't just get anyone at Villanova. They got Jameer Brickus over there instead of him, and that was a great guy to take over for Max Scholga. But I think this VCU team has second weekend potential, and I've been saying it for weeks on the Twitter account. They are great. They're great on both ends of the court. Ryan Odom is an up-and-coming coach. Watch out for him maybe on the main line to be the next head coach over there.
There's a tip.
Yeah, watch out. They drag out possessions. They do not let other teams score on them. They actually, the lowest field goal percentage, the opponent field goal percentage in the country. So that shows how great their defense is. And they rebound the piss out of the ball. I was so amazed when we played them. That's how I want every one of my teams to be from here on out. They crash the board super hard. They don't give any plays off. They're 6th in the country in offensive rebounding percentage. And that really showed against LaSalle. It really showed in the conference tournament in crunch time. That wins games. Offensive rebounds, getting those extra possessions wins games. And I think this could be the second year in a row that BYU ends up losing to an A-10 team in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Hey Nick, Friday during the broadcast, Dr. John Giannini gave a stat that VCU on 1/3 of their defensive possessions either blocks a shot or causes a turnover.
It's havoc. They're going back to their old ways. The shot is smart. And the thing about Ryan Odom is every year, so I go back a long time with Ryan Odom. I'm from Catonsville, Maryland. I mentioned that whole UMBC thing. So I was watching him. I started that page literally right when he started his head coaching tenure at UMBC. So I've watched pretty much every single game of his coaching career. He starts, 1 year will be defensive minded, 1 year will be offensive minded. This year, it's both of them. And I think this is his best coaching job so far. Obviously, he has a lot more talent and the bigger talent pool. He was at UMBC. That's a tough school. He was at Utah State, and they only have a select couple players they could really pick from in that program. But he's at VCU, and he can get whoever he wants. And he has dudes that are just going to be dogs like Philip Russell. Philip Russell's one of those dudes. We saw it in our game. Ended up getting Deuce kicked out of the game. Ended up getting a flagrant against Deuce. They are just a hard-playing offensive and defensive team with a whole bunch of dogs.
Well,
that's not what you want to see.
It's interesting too that a lot of times these teams take on the demeanor of their coach.
Mhm.
He is such I love his sideline demeanor.
Yeah.
I don't see him yelling or anything. He communicates effectively with his players, and they do what he asks them to do.
Yeah, he's super calm. And like we saw at the end of the championship game, he ran up. Philip Russell was talking trash to the Mason bench.
I
That
saw
was
that.
probably the most emotion we saw from Ryan Odom all day. He ran over and pulled him aside and don't do that, don't do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just a great dynamic they have going down there in Richmond. Like I said, he might not be down there for long.
So watch out for VCU possibly going, a couple weekends. Nick, 3-14 Wisconsin against Montana.
Yeah, Montana's a very experienced, deep squad. They're on top of the Big Sky all year. They shoot the ball really well. They have the fifth highest field goal percentage in the field, but they just have a whole bunch of experience. They have dudes from all over the country. They have a dude from Holy Cross on their team, but they have experience. They're really well coached. Travis DeCur has been probably the class of the Big Sky since Randy Ray retired at Weber State. Um, they are a 14 seed who I could see pulling off an upset. I said it a couple weeks ago that they could pull off an upset in the NCAA tournament. Watch out for the Grizzlies. Just super experienced and really, really strong offensively.
114 out of their last 15. 7 St. Mary's against 10 Vandy.
Yeah, I'll be there on Friday. I'll be in Cleveland. St.
That's your
Mary's,
number one team, man.
Yeah, it's my number one team in my top 25. And they've been up there for about 2 months. They were up and down, I say, for a St. Mary's team in non-conference, but in conference play, they just dominated everyone. They were killing teams by 20, 30 at the beginning of conference play, and it only ended up losing one game to a really good San Francisco team, alma mater of John Cox. But this St. Mary's team's great on both ends, too. They have the 8th most efficient defense in the country. They run the 3rd slowest pace. Randy Bennett's been able to do that for a really long time. Get deuces. It's beautiful offense to watch. Some people are like, this is super ugly, but I love watching just how everything falls apart there. They have the 2nd highest offensive rebounding percentage in the field. So just like VCU, these really good mid-major teams, they crash the board super hard. They never give up a play. They allow the 2nd lowest offensive rebounding in the country, and they send teams to the line, the 3rd fewest in the field. I'm going to keep going on and on. They allow teams to put up the 2nd fewest three-point in the field. They give up the fewest points from 3 in the field. They use the bench that's least in the field, which shows how strong that 5 is. Moralkis is one of the best big men in the country, and St. Mary's is just able to continuously get these international dudes, mostly from Australia. I believe he's from Lithuania, that come in to buy into their system, to be really, really good basketball players. I just don't like this opening matchup for them, though. It's a really good Vanderbilt team who scores a lot of points. Mark Byington's a really good coach. I'm really looking forward to that game. I'm really looking forward to both the 7-10 games I'm seeing in Cleveland, but that's going to be a really good one. I've been wanting to see St. Mary's for a long time. I missed out on them one time, I believe they played Pittsburgh in the NCAA tournament, but great program. They're a great team, just a really, really tough first-round matchup, and it would be a really, really tough second-round matchup if they're to play the Alabama Crimson Tide in the next round.
Last matchup in the East, number 2 Alabama, who 18 times, Nick, scored over 90 points this year. Robert Morris gets them.
Yeah, Nate Oates is doing an amazing job at Alabama. Shout out Andy Toole. Dunph was just behind me about 5 minutes ago. He's a Dunph disciple. He did an amazing job this year. They've been horrible since they moved to the Horizon League. They moved to the Horizon League right after COVID. They never finished over 500. He was on the hot seat, as hot as it could possibly get in December. And then they won like 15 out of 16 to end the regular season. He had Cam Woods come in. Cam Woods has been everywhere. He's been NC State, NC A&T, Troy. But he puts up so many shots, and he really is the spear of that offense in the backcourt. And then they have Fulgaris in the front court, international guy, kind of really came out of nowhere, and he's had a great season. Amarian Dickerson has had a great year. He's going to be able to go back home and play in Cleveland, where he's from. I'd say watch out for Bobby Mobies. They've just been playing great basketball. Who knows? If they continue to play, if they hit the nail on the head here, they could knock off Alabama, and a team that many people thought was going to be the national champion at the beginning of the year, has a pretty tough first 2 rounds with Robert Morris, potentially another SEC game in Vandy, and St. Mary's there, who's been awesome all year.
Well, we're going to transition to the Midwest now. There's 6 mid-majors in this bracket here. First up, Houston SIU.
Yeah, SIUE is in their first NCAA tournament under Brian Baroni. Rayshawn Taylor, he's a great guard. What I'm looking forward to in this game because I think Houston will probably end up smoking them. I'm happy for SIUE making it to the NCAA tournament for the first time. There was an inside joke in the office with Justin Ray, our strength and conditioning coach, and Brody Dempsey, the other GA. One day I just walk in and they're talking about walking in Memphis. So we're trying to get walking in Memphis to play before the game at LaSalle all year, and the dang kid would not play it. He would not play it. So someone from the Ohio Valley reaches out to me before their semifinal games on Friday, just like completely out of the blue. I don't know why he sent me a DM. He's like, "Do you want a song to be played during our conference tournament?" That was the first song that popped in my head. So there's about 3 minutes left. It's a 2-point game in a crucial semifinal in the OVC. And walking to Memphis plays, you just hear the piano in the background. It's like super intense, and you hear the piano in the background. I hope they buy into it. It would be awesome to have like an Amir Khan. We're about to talk about McNeese in a second. Amir Khan, they have a couple awesome managers. They have an awesome manager staff at SIU. Aiden Hall, he is the son of Longwood AD Tim Hall, who gave me my first internship at UMBC, and Walker Jordan, who's been grinding to get a manager job, and he finally ended up getting one halfway through the year at SIUE. I hope they come out with a big beatbox and they're playing Walking in Memphis. Imagine that. Imagine walking out the court playing Walking in Memphis as a hype-up song.
Next up, Clemson McNeese.
Yeah, I hate Clemson. I went to South Carolina, so I will never say anything nice about Clemson. I know you guys hate Clemson as well. But it's a really cool matchup for McNeese. Will Wade, who was a great coach for a long time, he was at VCU. He was at LSU. He's going up against his alma mater. He was a manager at Clemson. And this McNeese State team is littered with high major talent. There's a whole bunch of dudes that transferred down from Power 5 programs. And they've had a really good year. They absolutely mowed through the Southland, only lost 1 game in Southland play. They allow the 4th fewest 3-point attempts in the field, and the 2nd fewest points off of threes in the field. So if they're able to hold down Clemson from 3 like they have with teams all year, I could see an upset here. There's a little extra motive there. And everyone's going to be watching McNeese State because that Amir Khan kid I just mentioned too. He's one of the early darlings of the NCAA tournament, walking around with a beatbox and everyone hyping him up. He's the first manager to have NIL deals. He has a NIL deal with Insomnia Cookies and Buffalo Wild Wings. How cool is that?
Let's transition to Purdue High Point.
Yeah, I love this High Point team. I've loved this High Point team for a couple of years. I saw them in their conference tournament last year, and that place is a utopia. It's like high class campus, like dining, just student life. Everything about it is beautiful. And we saw it yesterday during the selection show. They had the arena at capacity for their watch party, which is just absolutely insane. There was not an empty seat in that place. But they have so much talent too. They have so much money. President Nito's really given a lot of money into that program, and it starts with the arena. But they have a $2 million budget, and they've really hit the nail on the head in the transfer portal, unlike any other low major program's really been able to. But they score the ball really nice. They do not allow assists. They have a new dude that can go off any single night. Chase Johnston, Kezagiva, Justin Bodo is about 7 foot, and he averages probably about 12 rebounds per game. Doesn't put up many points. They just have so many dudes on that team that could take off. This Purdue team isn't as good as it was last year when it made the national title. I could see 2 upsets in the squadron here, which makes that Providence region absolutely beautiful because you have these 2 games. We'll talk about Omaha later, smashing trash cans. They go up against St. John's and Rick Pitino. And then you have in the other game, Bill Self against John Calipari. I mean, if you have a Thursday off and you're in Rhode Island and you're not going to that, you're an absolute madman because that's just best you could get for a first round game.
How about Kentucky and Troy?
Yeah, Troy. I don't feel great about them in this one. Kentucky, I think, will finally get over the hump and win a first round game. I feel like they lose it every year. I know they have a new head coach here with Mark Pope, but Taden Conroy is the first Sun Belt Player of the Year to come out of Troy, and he really pushed them in that second half of the Sun Belt title game last Monday to bring them back to the dance for the first time in a couple of years. Scott Cross is one of the more underrated coaches in the country. He was at UT Arlington. They ended up firing for whatever reason. His alma mater, he was doing a great job there. Ended up bouncing back at Troy, and they've been towards the top of the Sun Belt his whole time there. They're another team that really crashes the board super hard on the offensive end. They're third in the field in offensive rebounding percentage. But I just see this Kentucky team winning this. Kind of crazy that an 11-loss team ended up getting a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. So that just shows how good this Kentucky team is.
UCLA, Utah State.
Yeah, I'm a huge Utah State fan. The Mountain West has really struggled in the first round of the NCAA tournament, unless you're San Diego State, just ever since they've gotten 3, 4, 5 bids in the NCAA tournament. Shout out Dayton Albury. I've said it the last couple of days. He's their point guard. He will be forever on my resume. He was at Queens with me last year. He's a downhill point guard. He doesn't really pass the ball much, but he's a point guard. He just takes it straight to the hoop, and he was newcomer of the year in the ASUN last year. So I have it on my resume that I helped him out, and that I'll always cheer for DA over there. But they allow the third longest possessions in the field, so they really grit you out on the defensive end. They have a couple dudes that can shoot the ball really well. They're just like High Point. They have dudes that can go off any given night. I think this could be the first team in a long time that's not San Diego State to win a first-round game out of the Mountain West. Watch out for Jared Calhoun and the Utah State Aggies. He's been a great coach too. I mean, he was at Youngstown State for a long time, really built up that program, and now he's doing it at Utah State where everyone has success.
Last game in the Midwest, Wofford, Tennessee. Can Wofford hang with Tennessee?
I don't think so. The big thing about Wofford is they're really bad at free throw shooting, and that's because they have this one guy, Kyler Filwich. If Wofford is able to do something nice and keep it close with Tennessee, all eyes of the country are going to be on this guy. He shoots a granny shot. He got it after Rick Barry. He came in and taught him how to do it. He literally came down to Spartanburg, and he taught him how to shoot the granny shot. It hasn't made an insane difference. He's still shooting like 33% from the free throw line, but it is better than what he was doing. He's going to be one of the darlings if it's somewhat of a close game just because of his unique free throw style.
Let's hope for that close game. I'd love to see that flashback. All right, let's move to the South. Halfway there. Game I can't wait for, Nick. Michigan, UC San Diego, a familiar foe.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that UC San Diego team, and they were just so stacked. And Iwaniwa Tate Jones ended up winning Big West Player of the Year. I wasn't super impressed when we played him. He had a good game, but he's really taken off. He's averaging about 20 points per game. Hayden Gray can shoot the lights out of the ball, and he ended up winning Defensive Player of the Year in the Big West. You have Tyler McGuy, who's calmed down a little bit, but he was one of the best three-point shooters in the country when we ended up playing him. He's another really good piece. It's just an awesome story. It's their first year of D1 eligibility coming up from D2. They weren't even D2 until the year 2000, and now they're in the NCAA tournament, and they're a popular upset pick. It's a really tough matchup because Michigan's coming off the Big Ten tournament title. Everyone loves choosing Big Ten tournament title teams in that first round, and I feel like they kind of end up dropping the ball quite a bit. It's an interesting matchup because a lot of people look at the two-headed monster down low. UC San Diego doesn't really shoot a lot of twos. They focus on the three ball. So if they're able to hit 15, 20 three-pointers, there's no reason why they can't win this game. They attempt the most threes in the field. So I think it's a perfect matchup for them. I was on the fence when I first saw it. I was like, I don't like this. But watch out for these Tritons. It's been an awesome year for Eric Olin, 30 wins. It's just awesome to see a program like that who couldn't even play in their conference tournament their first 4 years in D1. First 2 years, all their games in the league didn't even count towards the standings. They were 0-0. Whoever they played, those games didn't count. It's awesome to see them just grit through all that, keep most of the same guys, and be this successful.
Amazing story. Great to root for. Texas A&M Yale coach James Jones said, "I'm packing 2 suits for this trip."
Yeah, they're one of the best dressed staffs in the country. We saw that last. Well, they have great socks. Shout out Caleb Cuppa. He's a Philly guy. He's their new Dobo over there. It used to be Matt Elkin, who's at Stanford now. But great dress staff, and they're a great squad. I mean, they were killing teams in the Ivy League and a historically super strong Ivy League. And they were just absolutely dominating teams. John Poulikitis is one of the best three-point shooters in the country. He's very close to 50% from three-point land. Bez Mbang had another great year. He's a DMV kid. He was up for a lot of National Player of the Years at the mid-major level. They shoot three balls like crazy as well. We saw Yale beat an SEC team in the NCAA tournament last year with Auburn. I feel like there's a chance it could happen again. They've just been playing cohesive, great basketball for months, beating teams by 20 points. They dominated Princeton in pretty much every game outside of the conference semifinals where they came back and they made it a close game. This Yale team is a different breed. They're a really, really good 13 seed.
Polikitis had 28 against Auburn last year. The thing that concerns me against Texas A&M, though, they can shoot themselves in and out of games, but the one thing they do really well is offensive rebounding. So they can actually have a poor shooting game, but the way they attack the boards, they can still be successful.
The difference maker, like we've said a couple of times, they're just getting those extra possessions and crashing the offensive boards. If you're a coach, that's one of the top things I would really hone in on. Offensive rebounding, one of those extra possessions, creates open shots and gets you those wins.
So let's take a look at Lipscomb and Iowa State. Maybe a much more winnable game now since Iowa State's down a man.
Yeah, I love it. I love that one of Iowa State's top scorers isn't playing. Lipscomb's been a really, really good program under Lenny Acuff, one of the more underrated coaches in the country and in the A-Sun. They have Jacob Ognashevich down low. He wears a mask now, one of those like Batman masks, I believe. But he's been a great big man. He didn't play last year. He's playing this year, and he won Player of the Year in the A-Sun. They're led by Will Pruitt in the backcourt. He's been at Lipscomb for a long time. I call him Mr. Lipscomb. You go to the Nashville airport. You don't see this for a lot of mid-major teams. In the Nashville airport, they have like poles with his face on it. It's just absolutely insane. I'm happy for this Lipscomb program that they're making it back to the NCAA tournament. They're the third best free throw shooting team in the field. They send teams to the line the second fewest in the entire field, and they allow the second fewest assists. So I think this has become a much more winnable matchup with that Iowa State player out. I really, really like Lipscomb to keep it close in this game and give more love to the A-Sun. The A-Sun's had a couple really good showings in the NCAA tournament. Kennesaw State almost beat Xavier a couple years back. But I love this Lipscomb team, and I think Lenny Acuff is one of the more underrated coaches in the country, coming from UA Huntsville over to Lipscomb.
Couple of notes I made on Lipscomb is that they don't turn it over, they defend without fouling, and they don't beat themselves.
They do not beat themselves, and that's what really, they were in the top 100 of the net ranking all year. When they ended up playing Queens early in conference play, and Queens beat them at Lipscomb, they were top 75 in the country, so that was a quadrant one win for the Queens Royals. They beat Duquesne to open up the season on November 4th. So they've shown signs of beating very, very talented teams. They don't shoot themselves in the foot like they have not been doing all year. There's a really good chance they could make this into a game.
This next one's a huge matchup, Nick. You got Marquette, Shaka Smart, who we just talked about, and Rick Pitino Jr. with the Lobos. This is going to be a battle.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm going to be there. That's another one in Cleveland. Cam Jones against Donovan Dent. Donovan Dent's one of the better point guards in the country that a lot of people aren't talking about. He can shoot the hell out of the ball, averaging about 20, 25 points per game. So all the eyes of college basketball should be on that 7-10 matchup. It's going to be a great one. Richard Pitino is a hot name for a lot of coaching jobs this cycle. Virginia's one of them. Going back up north to maybe Indiana is another one of them. This is his best team yet. He has Donovan Dent. He has C.J. Nolan also in that backcourt, but he has a really, really strong front court with Nelly Jr. Joseph, who comes over from Iona. He has Philip Borovician I always struggle to say that name. He's been around for a couple years in the program, but they have a lot of versatility. Mustafa Amzil coming over from Dayton. He's always been a pretty strong shooter. They have a lot of depth in that front court. They have a really, really good takeover guard. Their team, if the cards fall right, they could potentially make a run in the NCAA tournament. I think this is Richard Pitino's best team yet, which says a lot because he had a great backcourt last year, and they ended up getting smoked by Clemson in the first round. That broke my heart. As we've mentioned, I hate Clemson. I thought
He's,
New Mexico would make a run last year.
he's been rumored at the Villanova job as well.
Yeah, that is too.
So the last the 215 matchup. This is my feel good story from championship week so far. Maybe because we all know him so well, but Michigan State and Bryant, obviously Phil Martelli Jr. just cut the nets down. His dad was there, his family, Nick, and tell us about that game a little bit and this matchup.
Yeah, it was awesome seeing Junior go into the crowd and hug his dad after the game. That was all over Twitter. But shout out Ryan Daly as well, another Philly guy, Joe's guy, Mike Doyle's cousin actually. But they're littered with Philly dudes. Earl Timberlake has been great for them. He is a Baltimore dude. He ended up winning America East Player of the Year, and he's been great for them for a very, very long time. They run a super fast style, third fastest pace in the field. They allow the fewest blocks in the field, so they don't take many dumb shots, and they're the third tallest team in the field. Watch out for Connor Withers. He could get in the head of some of these Michigan State players. He is a very, very talkative guy. He's a really good player. He can stretch the game out a little bit. He was at UMass Lowell before Bryant. But it's awesome. We get to see another Martelli in the NCAA tournament. Maybe they make some noise and maybe they upset Michigan State. I think that's kind of going to be hard to do, but it would be cool to see another Martelli make some noise in March.
I watched an interview with Phil Martelli Jr. and he talked about how he received a call from Michigan State's Tom Izzo after he won, and it turns out they're playing each other.
Crazy.
I was going to say they're going to have a heck of a scouting report because Phil Martelli Sr. was familiar with Michigan State in the Big Ten, so absolutely can't wait for that. Rock, take us home with the West.
Okay, let's go out to West. A game that I can't wait to watch: Memphis, Colorado State.
Yeah, I mean, you don't ever see actually lower seeds favored in games. Colorado State are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I saw last night, I was watching CBS Sports Network, they were 70% favorites to win this game. They ended up winning the Mountain West tournament. Nick Clifford is an awesome player. He's shown it all year. They have Bowen Bourne, who runs their offense at point guard. He comes over from Northern Iowa. And Memphis is a little banged up. I've not been all that big on Memphis all year. A lot of people love them. They had a really good Maui, but they've struggled. Tyrese Hunter isn't playing. He runs that offense. He scores a lot of points. That's a really, really big miss. I did a lot of stats for pretty much every single mid-major in this field. I couldn't find anything on Memphis. They're the fifth most experienced team in the field. But everyone loves them. I just really don't understand that. But Colorado State doesn't allow offensive rebounds. They assist the ball really well. They're a great team. Nico Medved does not get the flowers he deserves. He will be at Minnesota probably in a couple weeks as their new head coach. He's a Minnesota guy. But he has consistently surprised people because people have him towards the middle of the pack every year in the Mountain West, and they end up finishing in the top four and getting in the NCAA tournament. They beat Virginia in one of the ugliest NCAA tournament games you'll ever see last year in the first four. A couple years ago, he had David Roddy, who ended up going to the NBA, and they were a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. This is a Colorado State program who's been getting slept on for a very long time. The selection committee was doing the same thing, picking them as a 12 seed in the NCAA tournament. I think they end up beating Memphis. I think Memphis' stay is very short. And once again, Memphis does not make the Sweet 16. They have not done it since John Calipari was the head coach in Memphis.
Missouri and Drake.
Yeah, everyone loves this Drake team, and I think it's really a perfect matchup for the Bulldogs. They run a lot slower than Missouri. I believe Drake actually runs the slowest offense in the entire country. It's the slowest in the entire country. And Missouri likes to get up and down, but they're experienced, a whole bunch of D2 guys who came over, and they've played really, really well together. Bennett Sturts can shoot the lights out of the ball, and he's been one of the most impactful transfers in the entire country, coming over with Ben McCollum from Northwest Missouri State. But I think this is a perfect matchup for the Bulldogs. They might not win more than one game in the NCAA tournament, but they're going to have a whole bunch of D2 guys who end up going and beating Missouri in the first round of the NCAA tournament. They force turnovers, the third most in the field. They go to the line, the third most in the field, and they steal the ball. They steal the ball at the highest percentage in the entire country. Ben McCollum's done an awesome job. I feel like someone should have hired him a very, very long time ago. He got one of his dream jobs at Drake. And there's a chance with Fran McCaffrey being fired at Iowa that he could be the next head coach at Iowa. From Northwest Missouri State, a D2 head coach, to Iowa in the Big Ten in a year and some change is just a really, really cool story.
Yeah, well, we've seen this before. It's all about getting hot at the right time, and that's pays dividends for teams, and not only that, but it pays dividends for coaches as well. Let's transition to Texas Tech and UNCW.
Yeah, I really love this UNCW team. Texas Tech is just going to absolutely punch teams in the mouth, though. They're super aggressive. They run super slow. UNCW really isn't like that either. They aren't like a crazy fast-paced team. They've always been known for their defense, but their offense has gotten a lot better this year under Takeo Siddle. He's another hot name. If VCU's open, I could see him potentially becoming the head coach there. But a name to watch out in this game is Harlan Obioha. He's a big man down low. He comes over from Niagara. I really, really like him. He rebounds the ball. He plays super tough. He's a pretty solid offensive player. But they have a couple guards, Donovan Newby, who runs that offense, who will help them on the offensive end. I think it could be a close game. I love Grant McCaslin as a coach. I think that Texas Tech is a really, really well-coached team, super talented. It's a really tough matchup for UNCW. It's going to be a really, really, really ugly matchup. I'd be shocked if anyone scored more than 60 points in this game. So if you like defense, this is your kind of game.
And the last game of the day here is St. John's in Omaha.
Yeah, everyone's going to talk about Rick Pitino, and he's doing an awesome job over there. Just won the Big East title for the first time since 2000, I believe. And he has a really, really good squad, very, very talented squad. But Omaha has been one of the darlings of mid-major basketball all year because they were picked towards the end of the Summit League in the preseason, and they kind of came out of nowhere. Markel Sutton's been an awesome piece for them shooting the ball. But they're known for smashing trash cans. And if they're somehow able to beat St. John's, it could be the biggest trash can smash we've ever seen. They get like WWE wrestlers to do like forearm slams on them and like 619s. It's an awesome little gimmick they have going on there in Omaha. And they've really grown a niche in the college basketball community with that kind of stuff. And I hope they're able to do something. That would be crazy if Rick Pitino has his best team probably since the Louisville days, and they end up losing to the mighty Omaha Mavs in their first NCAA tournament in the first round.
Nick, first time I saw you at the practice facility this past summer, we made eye contact. You were at the table working the clock, and something about you, I just knew like that dude's special. So it's been a privilege for myself, for Richie, to be around you this season, to learn from you, and no one knows more about mid-major madness, and just a pleasure to have you on. Hopefully, our listeners enjoyed it.
Well, if I could just add too, Nick, listen, you obviously have a very bright future in the game of basketball. It's a pleasure just listening to you go through these teams, and your knowledge and your recall is just tremendous. And I think you got a real positive upside, and I wish you the best of luck.
Appreciate you guys a lot. I love this LaSalle program. Got two legends here. Try to listen to all these before the games, and it's just
thank you.
Awesome. You guys,
I thought you meant like I thought you meant Dunph and Mahalik. Oh, you're talking about us.
We're going back and forth here with the compliments because no one covers the program, and then we have you guys who just popped up this year. And although it's not on radio, you guys, it's going to be you get a lot more eyes on Twitter, on social media, and you guys talk about a program that no one talks about. The Inquirer doesn't even cover us anymore, but we got you guys in our corner every single game talking about what's upcoming. I send you guys the scouts. You guys read that. You guys really care, which is something that we really, really appreciate in this program. So I thank you guys for just giving us that little extra coverage because I like that in any kind of program. We have you guys and we have the Alney fans, boys.
Well, I would just add that my heart and soul is with LaSalle University, and I credit it with putting me in a position to accomplish what I've been able to accomplish in my life, and it all started, at LaSalle University, and I'll be forever grateful.
And I'll be forever grateful, like Bobby Johnson, if we can get like a lawsuit NIL retroactive to anywhere between the 88 and 92 era so we can get some cash. Bobby brought that up the other night. He's like, how far does this go back? To like 90s? He was car shopping.
Hey, Braun sent him a little text going, "Hey, Bobby, your take on that is going to be $4.17."
Hey, thanks, man. Had a blast.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Nick.